Okay, it's been a couple of days and our parts have come in now. We can go ahead and continue on with the repair. I went ahead earlier and cleaned the castings with some carburetor cleaner. Cleaned off the extra oil and calcium deposits that were on them, so these are ready to go. We can go ahead and start our reassembly now. There's a couple more things I do need to clean up as part of the reassembly process. That would be the lower portion of the valves and these little seal plates. And to clean those, I'm just going to simply use a rag with a little bit of carburetor cleaner on it. And I can just wipe the remaining grease and calcium off of those pieces. Okay, with all the cleaning done, we can go ahead and reassemble the pump. As we reassemble the pump, I'll point out a few techniques that will help you with the process. These seals need a little bit of a silicone grease put on the groove on the back. These are the seals that seal against the piston. Now the valves. These joining seals. Now the upper valves. And I will make sure those seated using a small screwdriver. This is the chemical injection valve. To remount the O-ring on the chemical injection valve, I can simply use a little bit of my silicone grease on my finger, put that on the end of the injector nozzle, and that'll hold the O-ring in position when we screw it back into the casting. And we'll tighten that up with a wrench. Now the upper valve caps. And the upper slide that seals the caps. And this half of the casting is ready to go. On this side of the pump, we'll start with the seal cap spacers. These have a small tab for alignment. It just fits into the casting. And the seal caps. Now we can install the new unloader valve. This is the part we ordered in for the repair. On the unloader valve, I want to use some Teflon grease on the upper portion of the valve, this O-ring only. I don't want to put any grease on this lower O-ring, or it may tend to cause the unloader valve to come unseated from the pump casting. So just a small amount of that Teflon grease on my finger, and we'll wipe it around that upper O-ring. Again, upper O-ring only. Insert it back into the pump casting and seat it with some needle nose pliers. Now the unloader cap, spring first, then the cap, and the screws. The splash cover and its retaining button. On the back side of the casting, I will reinsert the pistons, And this side of the pump is now complete. Now I can replace the two halves of the pump back together. For now, I'll set this aside and we'll return to the oil reservoir. We previously drained the oil out of the reservoir. We need to refill it now. I pour the oil into the pump housing until the level of the oil comes up to about 1/8 of an inch above the wobble plate, as it is there. That's the proper amount of oil. Now I can take our pump assembly, set it back onto the casting, and reinsert the screws. When I set these, I will need to push down on the pump because of the springs on the piston. They want to push the pump away from the pump housing. So to get these started, I do need a little bit of downward pressure. Now I can tighten up the bolts. What I find works best is I'll concentrate on 2 out of the 4 bolts first, and I'll incrementally tighten them up so I'm not stressing the casting in any way. As soon as those 2 bolts seat, then I can finger tighten the other 2. And now I'll work my way around the pump, tightening each bolt a small amount until I come to the final torque that I want, ensuring a good seal with the oil seal and that I don't damage any of the castings. For the final tightening, I'll switch to a box end wrench, tip the pump on its side, and tighten those bolts down one final time. And the pump is rebuilt now and ready to go back onto the pressure washer. Now we'll reassemble the pump onto the pressure washer. A little bit of WD-40 in the spindle will make the reassembly much easier. Now I'll just line up the keyway with the key on the motor shaft. And last, we'll reinstall the fasteners. This pressure washer had the problem of low pressure while in use. While diagnosing it, we disassembled the pump, we cleaned the pump, we replaced a bad unloader valve, and we reassembled the pump. Using these techniques, you should be able to diagnose and repair almost any problem with your pressure washer. Okay, let's fire it up and see how it worked. If you found this video helpful, please take a minute and leave us a comment or ask a question.